Maria, we're going to start.
I suggest because otherwise I don't think this video camera will pick it up in this room.
The ladies that we were signing in, I overheard saying to somebody else, if you want to speak, write it down and hand it to them. Sure.
I made trails for myself. I'm used to it. I'll just keep going. That's great. Oh, I think it's wonderful to hear. I want to keep everyone. I'm trying to protect everyone.
Good evening. My name is Maria Morris, and I'm the city clerk of San Luis Ramos, and I just want to announce that the city council meeting that was going to be held tonight is canceled due to lack of quorum. We're going to continue with the outreach meeting, but we don't have a quorum for the council, so we're canceling the actual meeting that got posted. Okay? So we're going to continue, and thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Some familiar faces. Thank you very much for coming again. Thank you to everybody who hasn't been here. Can you all hear me? Yes? It fades a little. This is a very strange one. Okay, so my name is Karen McDonald. I am the districting consultant to the city, and this is my colleague, Jamie Clark, who has been working on the map with me. I want to introduce some people that are here from the city. I have here Mayor Pro Tem Carrie Ferguson and Councilmember Sam Olivado. We have the city manager, Mr. Ben Siegel over there. And we have Maria Morris, of course, city clerk, who just said hello to all of you. We have Christy Jekyll, who is her, she's the assistant city clerk. I got it right. And then we have Jesus Villaseñor in the back. He's our translator. Thank you so much. And then we have counsel to the city, Ms. Christina Talley right here. So thank you very much. Did I forget anybody who works for the city? No. Great. So again, thank you very much for coming. This is our third. Meeting, community meeting, and we figured that we're not going to put you through the same PowerPoint that many of you can probably recite in your sleep. So I'm going to, yes, exactly. I know who you are, you know who you are. I cut it down a little bit just to summarize it, just to remind us all of our criteria and all of that. And also want to just give you a little overview of how we thought this meeting might best be conducted tonight. So, let's go through what we've done so far. Of course, you know this. We had 2 community meetings. One was here. The other one was at La Sala. And we had 1 city council hearing. We collected input about your communities. And of course, we did this in the hearings, also in the meetings. And many of you have submitted written testimony. We've gotten some phone calls. It's been really great that everybody's participated. And then we drew some lines in public and created a preliminary draft. The preliminary draft is over there on the wall. It's also on the city's website. We got the city's GIS consultants, or no, they have a consultant who works on the website to put up a little interface where you can see where the current lines are going. You can zoom in You can also see the underlying census blocks with the census block population on that interface. After tonight, we're going to put a new draft onto the city's website so everybody can see it. So that should be up very quickly as we can get those guys to basically put it up. So I just want to let you know that if you're going to go onto that website, and the website, by the way, is districting.sanjuancapistrano.org. And there's also all kinds of other information, and we're taping all of these meetings and hearings, so those are on there as well. So if you do want to see one of the old PowerPoints, you can watch one of the videos from the other hearings or meetings. The PowerPoint's also up on the website, so you can take a look at that also. And always feel free to just send us an email or call the city clerk. There's a number, there's an email address, and let us know if you have any kinds of questions or any further input. We'll be happy to get back to you and explain whatever you need to know. Okay, so we collected feedback. Tonight, we're going to now do a brief presentation process overview. I'm going to remind you of the districting criteria. Then we'll do an overview of the preliminary map draft. Then Jamie's also going to walk you through some of the public input that we received. Those of you who were at the City Council hearing a couple of weeks ago know that we got some input from the City Council also. We took a look at that, so Jamie's going to walk you through some of these things. Then we're hoping to get some more feedback from you, so you can give us feedback on the lines right now, like what do you not like, what should we do, should we tweak it, is something okay, what works, what doesn't work. So give us some feedback, and then we're going to continue to work on the draft based on what we hear from you and based on the input that we received from some people that can't be here, you know, some of the City Council input and all that. So we will try to create and finish really a new draft that we can present to the council on Monday night. Because as you all know, the time is really short. We had to get through this process very quickly. So tonight's the night to do something really great with the lines that we have right now, and get the best possible product that we can possibly present to the City Council on Monday. So really looking forward to hearing from all of you. Really quickly, I'm going to remind you what our mapping criteria are. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. There are 5 criteria that we're using for drawing district maps. The first one is equal population. So when we're done, all of these districts have to be roughly equally populated. They can be a little bit off, but we're shooting for equally populated districts. Second criterion is compliance with the Voting Rights Act. Essentially, there are 2 big terms in the Voting Rights Act: packing and cracking. You cannot use you cannot take a protected minority group and force them into a district such that they would be packed in that district if they could be a majority in 2 districts, for example, or vice versa. On the other hand, you cannot take a minority group that could be a majority in a district and then crack it so that they cannot be a majority in either district or in multiple districts. Contiguity, it means that our districts have to be connected. I know from some of the feedback that I've received that I have confused a lot of people by sometimes saying that you had to be able to drive from one end of the district to the other. It's actually not really drive. It could also be walk. It really is just the district has to be connected in some fashion. And we keep on trying to figure out how to really explain this properly, and sometimes we do a better job than other times. But essentially, the district has to be in one piece. And when we're talking about one piece, we really mean it has to be connected via the census geography that we're working with. And of course, many of you have seen the census geography. Some of it makes a little more sense than other census geography for San Juan Capistrano. We've also talked about that we're trying to get some of that fixed, but right now we're pretty much stuck with what we have. So you'll see some of this once we start mapping again, and we will be reminded of how crazy some of these census blocks are. So compactness basically just means that your district should not look very strange. If it looks like something that you see under a microscope in a biology lab, then you might want to reconsider whether or not you really want to draw that. Essentially what I tell people is that if you have to do a lot of explaining with the district, then you should just step back and take another look at it. There are some perfectly valid explanations for strangely shaped districts. Oftentimes it has to do with census geography, also has to do with having to equally populate districts. But if it doesn't make sense, then you should probably not draw it. And then finally, respecting communities of interest. Should I go in there again? Respecting communities of interest. So communities of interest, that is really something that we have asked you all to please weigh in on. We've heard a lot about the homeowners associations in San Juan Capistrano. There are many of them. We've heard about where the boundaries are. We've heard some feedback about how people really want to make sure that as much as possible homeowners associations stay together. And there are other definitions for communities of interest. I'm going to give you a couple of explanations on the next slides. And finally, please just remember that we are not supposed to think about incumbents in this process, or candidates, or political parties. So we're supposed to keep politics as much as possible out of this process, and I think so far we've been pretty good at that. So hopefully we can keep it that way. Just a reminder, what's the ideal population for each district? So the ideal population is what each district in a perfect world should end up with. So the way you get to that is you look at the census population in 2010, because that was the only time in the recent history that the census has counted everybody they could find. And we got 34,593 people. The way you find out what your ideal population is you divide that by the number of districts that you want to draw, which in our case is 5. So our ideal population is 6,919 people per district. And there's a little bit of wiggle room. We should not go above or below 5% of that. So we have a little wiggle room on city council districts, but really not more than 5% above or below. And that's a really safe zone to be at, because otherwise you could get accused of creating malapportioned maps. Quick reminder of what a community of interest is, aside from homeowners associations, and we have heard some of this already. Just most generally, it's a geographic area that is comprised of residents who share similar interests, including but not limited to social, cultural, ethnic, geographic, or economic interests. And the interests can be a current or a future, or they could be a future goal. So a current interest may be you're working on a school, you're working on a park, you know that there are some issues with the park. You were trying to get like different ground cover in there, and everybody's organizing, and that's what we're doing. We're ripping the grass out, we're doing AstroTurf, or whatever. So that is something that we're currently working on. In the future, a future goal could be, we have this historic area and we're trying to get some money to put some plaques up and really just describe every house that's there. So it's something that we're doing in the future. We're raising money for it. We're all organizing to do this. So there's different ways to think about a community of interest. But just to keep in mind that what it is not, in this particular circumstance, a community of interest cannot include a relationship with a party, incumbents, or candidates. So thinking about communities of interest, we also can't, of course, take into consideration, a community of cat lovers throughout California, because really communities of interest, they're for this particular process for the city of San Juan Capistrano. So we're thinking about communities within the city boundaries. Economic interests. Current situation, another example could be common employment, or economic opportunities, or lack of economic opportunities. And goals under economic interest could be, we're expanding opportunities by doing certain things, we're working on development, we're bringing in businesses and jobs. And then social interests, current. Oftentimes people talk about schools because that is a very, very common way to organize culture, a shared culture. There could be a shared history, a shared language. It could be an immigration history. It could be, you know, all of our relatives stem from the same neighborhood outside of the country, things like that. We're going through the same cultural rituals. There's transportation. Oftentimes, people organize around transportation. That could be. We've heard a lot about certain thoroughfares here that have a lot of traffic problems. And then parks are always one that people organize around. And in terms of goals, we want to improve recreational opportunities for our community, or we're working on public safety. So this is a little summary of communities of interest. And the reason for why I'm highlighting this is because this is really what we've asked you all to weigh in on. Because for a lot of communities of interest, it's very important to stay together. And if we don't know where your community of interest is, then we can't attempt to keep you together in these maps. So thanks again for coming out and for participating so far, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, and Jamie's going to talk about the preliminary draft.
Hi, everybody. As Lauren mentioned, this is our draft map that we presented to the City Council. Some feedback from the City Council. This map was developed based on community of interest testimony that was collected in public hearings or public meetings like this, and also submitted through email and in person. And yeah, that's just a little bit of context into how we got where it is now. I'm just going to go through district by district and zoom in, try and give, and just give a general outline of where things are, because we don't have